A woman gets scolded for misgendering her abuser, an insane ethnic studies college class, and a professor falsely claims a hate crime? We're going to break down all these crazy stories and the other voicemails you guys sent in for our Friday episodes, our Voicemail Fridays, where I react to your craziest woke horror stories and your personal life scenarios and give you my advice. The link to send in a voice note is in the description if you're interested for future episodes. But we're going to break some of these down in today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show, where we typically talk about the news and take on the craziest ideas from our politics, our media, and the internet. But on Fridays, I take your voice notes and we do a interesting dive through some of the crazy experiences you guys have had that you are kind enough to share with me. Up first, we're going to hear from a woman who, this is really horrible, y'all, was scolded by a friend for misgendering the person who sexually assaulted her. Take a listen to this.
Hi, Brad. My name is Sage, and I'm a really, really big fan of your podcast. I think you're fantastic. I wanted to tell you a story from a few years ago. I'm 22 now, but this happened, I think I was like 17 or something. And I had been harmed by a person at my high school. And then a couple years later, after that had happened, he started going by they, them pronouns. And this is an Australian school, so obviously we're very quite like your version of liberal, very left-leaning. And I was talking to my friend at the time about how this person had hurt me, and I used he, him pronouns because, you didn't give me the decent human respect of, like, not treating me like shit. Why would I use your pronouns? And we got in a huge fight about it, and I was called this horrible, horrible, horrible bigot because I wouldn't call my SAer they, them. I just thought you should know that.
Girl, I just want to reach out and give you a virtual hug. I'm so sorry you went through that, and I'm sorry. Screw this friend. This is not a friend. Okay, this person is not a friend. A friend would not tone police a abuse survivor about how they're speaking about the person who abused them. That's genuinely sick and twisted. And how anybody can think that's like woke or the progressive or kind thing to do is actually beyond me. First of all, even if you weren't a victim of a terrible crime, you still don't have to call someone they, them if you don't want to, right? Like, that is a very dubious ideology and a thing they made up like 5 minutes ago on Tumblr that you don't have to go along with, because I've talked about this in the past, but the whole idea of, oh, they're, non-binary, they don't feel like a male or a female, is rooted in sexist stereotypes. So if you don't want to affirm that, you don't have to with your word choice, and doesn't make you bigoted or mean. If anything, to me, it makes you kind of correct. But regardless, especially in this context, this is so horrible and is such a great example of how, at the extremes, this oppression Olympics worldview and this obsession with identity politics breaks people's brains and takes them to just absurd places. Look, you need better friends than this person. This person is not a real friend. I hope you cut them off. I hope you find some people who actually have your back and stand up for you and aren't this broken in their brain by bizarre ideologies, because this isn't okay. You should never have had to experience that. And I'm really sorry. My heart goes out to you, but thank you for watching the show. Hopefully it brings a smile to your face once in a while, and hopefully you'll make some friends who aren't so ridiculously insensitive and just brain rotted by bizarre ideology. But then again, you are in Australia, so might be tough. Maybe consider coming to the States or somewhere else, but I'm sure there's also plenty of good folks in Australia who aren't on board with all this nonsense. Up next, we're going to hear about somebody's woke horror story from their college time when they were asked to write a paper in an ethnic studies class, and the TA did not like the direction they took it in. Take a listen to this.
Hi, Brad. I'm a college student on the West Coast, and I'm unfortunately required to take an ethnic studies course as part of my general education. As you can expect, everything is geared towards racial formation, cultural expression, just things that no one should be thinking that hard about, in my opinion. I recently had to write an essay describing and analyzing how I uphold my racial identity throughout everyday routines. I showed my boyfriend this prompt because we like to laugh at all the woke things our schools push on us, but this time he suggested I just answer it honestly, say how I don't feel any need to uphold any identity when I'm just living my life. So that's exactly what I did. I still wrote a full 800-word essay that was nuanced, but showed that I disagreed with the prompt. And I got a failing grade. My TA wrote me a long message, said that she sensed some pushback to the idea of cultural performativity. And it just goes to show how these professors and TAs are not here to engage meaningfully with anyone who has questions or who disagrees. They're just here to indoctrinate. No questions asked and no pushback, as my TA likes to put it. So thanks. Love your channel. Keep doing the great work.
Well, thank you so much for the call. And what a wild experience, but low-key rings very familiar to me with my experience at a left-wing university that I've talked before about in the past, so I won't even rehash it all now. But I mean, this is diabolical that they would do this. First, the prompt itself is bizarre. Like, I mean, it's about what I would expect from an ethnic studies course. To be clear, there's obviously, I think, and maybe I disagree with a little bit of what you said in the beginning, there are a lot of layers and dimension, and you probably do agree with this, to identity and race and its role in society and history that I actually think are worthy of serious study and scrutiny and thought. But this doesn't seem like serious thought or scrutiny. It seems like it's so one-sided. A meaningful conversation about these things doesn't have only a correct answer and a wrong answer about your own personal perspective. I mean, how are they going to tell you when the prompt is literally, what do you do in your daily life? If you say, well, I actually don't do this thing, how are they going to tell you that's wrong and give you an F? That doesn't even make sense to me at the most surface of levels. And it's not okay because what would I say? What the heck? How do I uphold my racial identity as a white dude? Which, is that even a race? Like, I don't know what I am. I'm 25% Italian, 20% English, something. I don't know. But like, how do I uphold a racial identity in my day-to-day life? I genuinely really would struggle to think of any way in which I do that. And so you're kind of put in an impossible situation. You either like lie to get a good grade. That shouldn't be what a school is encouraging people or forcing people to do. Or if you try to explain a different perspective, they're going to fail you. That's not okay. That is, like you said, indoctrination, not education. I had actually a couple TAs and professors who really liked different viewpoints and would like when I would challenge things. And even if they didn't agree, they would grade it on the quality of the essay. And I don't know, maybe you just wrote a terrible essay and that's why you got an F, but I highly doubt it. I highly doubt that. I imagine you wrote at least a C or B worthy paper, right? The idea that you wrote an F paper, I'm pretty suspicious of, because especially at modern colleges with the grade inflation that goes on there, you don't exactly have to be an award-winning writer to get a even decent grade on a paper. So it sounds like ideological punishment and bias, which is wrong. So I don't know if this is like ancient history or not. Maybe it's too late. But in the future, if something like this happens again, or if it's this current semester or the semester past, I think you should take it to the professor, right? The way this works, my understanding in university systems is that the TAs work under the professor and grade papers, but ultimately the professor's at the top of that food chain. You should challenge the professor and say, no, it's not okay to do this. This is indoctrination, and you need to change this, and see how they respond. And if they don't respond, tell them, well, listen, this isn't fair, and I will be taking this to the administration, and if that's unsuccessful, to the media, and we will see what the public thinks of this. Because that might get them to change their tune. But if you'd like to highlight this practice, you can reach out to me. I can put you in touch with some media outlets who might be very interested in reporting on this and putting some public pressure on your professor or your school. But you shouldn't have to stand for this. It's not okay. And it's just not even interesting or fun to have, a correct opinion and they all have to. Why would you even want as a TA to read a bunch of essays that all say the same thing? That's boring. If this TA actually had any of this spirit of curiosity that you're supposed to have in academia, they would want different perspectives to spice it up a little bit. I know I would if I had to grade 100 papers or whatever. It's all so lame. You shouldn't have to deal with this, and I'm really sorry you did. Hopefully you were able to turn things around and still get a decent grade, but if it's not too late, I do think you should pursue some kind of recourse, because this kind of shit, we shouldn't just let it fly. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you aren't yet, and do hit that like button if you're getting a kick out of this episode. Remember, you can send in your voice notes at the link in the description or the pinned comment. Up next, we're going to hear from somebody about their annoying queer friend. Let's take a listen.
Hi Brad, so something kind of crazy happened. So I'm lesbian and my bisexual friend has started giving me gay lessons and teaching me how to be better gay. And because I don't know very much about the new LGBTQ stuff. And she's turned being gayer than me into a competition, and she'll tell people that she's gayer than me as if it's an achievement. And she also says she's gender fluid now and she's not a girl anymore, but I won't get into that. Anyway, also, whenever I say anything vaguely nice about a guy, she'll stop being like, oh, you're lesbian, you can't say that. And she'll just start screaming it sometimes in public. And she also constantly tells me, if I say anything, disagreeing with her about, a guy, she'll be like, oh, your opinion doesn't matter, you're gay, you don't have an opinion on this. And also, whenever anyone says anything slightly mean to her or is jokey to her, but, in a mean way, not mean-spirited, but in a mean way. And she'll immediately call it homophobic, or in my case, heterophobic, or she'll be racist, sexist, all that stuff. Anyway, thanks, cheers.
Bruh, my first question is, why are you friends with this person? She sounds awful. Get new friends. Now, maybe it's not that simple, and I don't know. But this person, first off, is literally being homophobic to you, right? I mean, telling you need gay lessons. You actually don't. It's okay to be however you are and also be gay or lesbian. There isn't a correct way to be gay. That's annoying, dumb, wrong, and actually bigoted. And then this constant playing of the victim. Oh, when someone teases me, oh, they're racist, sexist, blah, blah. I mean, maybe this is just another kid. You're young. So maybe this person will grow out of it and they're just in their TikTok era or their Tumblr phase. I hope so. But for now, I mean, cut this person out of your life. They sound insufferable. What's the point of being friends with someone like this? I genuinely don't see it. I mean, maybe just try to branch out and meet new people who aren't going to shame you for being the wrong kind of lesbian, which isn't a thing and isn't something you should have to tolerate from anyone, or who aren't going to be buzzkills and constantly get offended and play the victim. I don't know. Maybe why even continue investing in a relationship like this with somebody who's mistreating you? One thing, I mean, you could try to set boundaries and have an honest conversation with this person and say, listen, you do this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and they're all wrong and not fair to me, and you need to stop, and I'm drawing a boundary. And then if they don't respect it, you could give them a chance and then maybe distance yourself. But you don't even have to do that. I mean, this person really sounds pretty justified to just terminate this relationship and seek friendship and companionship elsewhere, because frankly, you deserve better. Up next, we're going to hear from somebody whose professor friend may have lied about being victimized by hate, which we're really starting to encounter a lot these days. Let's take a listen.
Brad, I absolutely love your channel. Thank you for all of the hard work and effort that you put into it. I look forward to watching every single day. So this happened about 2.5 to 3 years ago. A friend of mine is a professor at a state university near where we both live, and she made a Facebook post, and she said, I had this weird and terrible interaction today. A kid came into my classroom and said, hey, are you the gay professor? And I replied, yeah, that's me, I guess. And he said, see, this is why we need Trump back in office, to remove people like you out of America. I'm dropping your class. And he left. So I commented and said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's awful. I have no idea how I would even begin to react to something like that. I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. That's horrible. Well, within 15 minutes, I had a message from somebody that I did not know who said, how dare you try to empathize with people you know nothing about? Being gay in America is incredibly traumatizing. You know nothing about it. Don't even think you can understand. You should remove your comment right now. Somebody replied directly to my comment on the post and said, I kid you not, said, I bet you look the other way when gay people are harmed. I had no words. My friend, by the way, did remove the post because she said maybe it didn't actually happen that way.
Uh oh? So she admitted that wasn't real? Well, that's very bad. Why would she have posted about it publicly in a way that it didn't happen? I mean, that was my first thought, though, when she was telling this story about what the friend posted. I was like, I'm not saying hate crimes don't happen still in 2025. They do. This one was like, and this wouldn't be a hate crime, but you know what I mean? This would be like, a hate incident or somebody being discriminatory or homophobic to you. They don't usually happen in a way that's this on the nose. Like this almost, it sounds scripted. It sounds too exact. It's giving Jussie Smollett, like the over the top nature of it. I do believe that there are people who get, look super feminine and very flamboyant and someone's driving by and yells a slur out at them, or that people even get like physically harmed or in different altercations. Bad stuff still happens. This is a big and diverse country and not everybody is super tolerant and open-minded. But the idea that somebody would come in and say, "Are you that gay professor?" And also it doesn't even make sense. Like Trump is not going to get rid of gay professors or whatever. That's not a thing. But regardless, it is so telling, and this is something you encounter a lot with the super woke progressives, how you were trying to be sympathetic and supportive and got like attacked from the woke flank. And that's really why I think this movement is just like bleeding popularity and slowly destroying itself, because when people try to be supportive of them, they attack them and criticize them, and they're constantly like infighting and policing their own and canceling each other. And it's like, how are you going to build a movement to change policy or politics in a majority of society when you're constantly doing this? It's like a super self-destructive and toxic approach to coalition building. Meanwhile, the right, if anything, has the opposite problem where they've got too big a tent and they'll let crazy people in. They're like, come one, come all. Even if you have different opinions on stuff, even if you have really bad opinions on some stuff. But this is why the woke movement is failing. It's just obviously one tiny example, but it's a microcosm of it. You see it with like the Unf America tour where they were going to resist Trump, all these TikTok stars, and then it imploded over imaginary microaggressions in a TikTok live scenario. It's like they can't get out of their own way. And it's just, I mean, from my perspective, as someone who doesn't support their movement, it's kind of delicious. Their tears are slightly delicious. And I am like with the popcorn, the Michael Jackson meme of just watching, eating the popcorn. But at the same time, from their perspective, shouldn't they like learn at some point to not be like this? I don't know. Maybe they'll just keep doing it over and over again and expect different results. But I think we all know that that's the definition of insanity. Up next, did you know that hanging out with white people is dangerous? Let's take a listen to our next voicemail.
Hey Brad, I just want to say thank you for doing this, and I'm really happy to participate. My woke nightmare happened around 2020 after BLM.
Oh, of course.
For context, I'm white, and my best friend growing up was African American. We were friends from 5th grade all the way up into my college years and after graduation. And when 2021 or whatever they started letting us back into restaurants rolled around, she sat down with me for the very last time and basically told me that she didn't want to be friends anymore. Everything that happened in our past was now framed with a political lens, and she did not want to hang around white people anymore. She thought it was dangerous and basically not safe for her or her family. I hope every single day that maybe one day she can get de-radicalized and we can continue being friends again. But until then, I lost someone that was basically a sister to me.
Oh, well, I am just so sorry. That's really sad. I actually just feel really bad for you. I mean, to have a lifelong friend like that you lose, I mean, that's something where you'd be grieving. You'd be mourning that loss of that relationship. And it's really tragic. And I'm not going to say, oh, well, you're just better off without her. She's crazy. It's not that simple. Human relationships are not that simple. So that's a real loss. And my heart goes out to you. Of course, it's absurd. Of course, it's ridiculous. But I mean, this person has probably been essentially the victim of like insane propaganda. I mean, especially in that 2020, 2021 era after the George Floyd, tragic death, there was this propaganda that really did convince people that racial things are way worse in America than they actually are. Not to say they're perfect, not to say there's no injustices or systemic issues left. I'm not saying that, but people really did become convinced that things were like so much worse than they actually are. I've seen these articles and these surveys where they ask people, how many unarmed black men do you think the police kill every year in America? And they'll say like 10,000. And the real answer is like 10. I'm obviously paraphrasing. I don't have the data pulled up, but you can look this up. It's very clear that rhetoric and narratives and media spin about this stuff has stirred people up to the point of absurdity. And it sounds like your friend is a victim of that. Doesn't totally absolve her of responsibility. I'm not totally taking her off the hook for doing something unfair and wrong, but I am having some sympathy and understanding for the context of how maybe somebody could end up in such a deranged position. But obviously, it's not unsafe to be friends with white people. That is an absurd thing. And I would hold out some hope that, it's not impossible that she could be de radicalized and maybe just keep reaching out every so often and extend an olive branch and make it clear that you still want to be in her life and have a relationship and that you're not unsafe just because you're white or anything like that. And at least then you did all you could. That's really all you can do in life is all you can. I know that sounds incredibly trite, but it's actually maybe not. I don't know. That's my profound wisdom on the matter. I mean, I have people in my audience who tell me that, 5 years ago, they were like a card carrying social justice warrior lib, totally drunk on the Kool-Aid, and now they've come full circle. So it's really not impossible that your friend could kind of see the light. They don't even have to become like a right-wing Republican, but just kind of wake up from some of the woke absurdity. That's totally not impossible. So definitely hold out some hope. And once again, really sorry for your loss, honestly. Up next, somebody asks an interesting question about how they can avoid becoming politically biased.
So my name is Natalie. I have this very vivid memory of my mother coming and crying to me about Trump winning the first time in 2016. I was 11 years old at the time, and for years I hated this man because my mother cried. People were telling me that he didn't support gay people, and my sister was gay. And I just I attacked people like verbally on like Snapchat and everything, being like a 14-year-old, for siding with this person who didn't align things in my personal life. And it took me all this misinformation and all of these people who are putting their feelings and everything into politics. It took like a lot for me, and now I'm 20 and I support Trump. I had to look at the other side of things. What other the Republicans, what they were speaking about, and only recently did I really get into it. But what would be your advice to continue without fully becoming biased as a Republican? I'm trying to navigate both sides, but I am just tending to stay directly on Republican. Um, but I don't want to become solely biased. Thank you. Have a good day.
So this is so funny because this Loki kind of sounds like my sister. I mean, I don't think she's a Trump supporter, but she was super woke Bernie Sanders fan when she was 14 and has gone very much a little bit of a 180 on a lot of that stuff. So it is just funny to me how that all plays out. But to answer your actual question, it's really good and it's really important because you don't want to become like the mirror image of that like brainwashed woke person that's just like, all hail Trump. Anything MAGA is amazing. What I would just say is to diversify your news diet. And no, this is not an ad, this is not a sponsorship, but like sign up for things like Tangle News and Ground News, where you can see what media outlets from across the political spectrum are saying. Find some left wing content creators who you can stomach and whose content you make a point to consume, even though they're going to be bashing Trump or whatever, just so you know what they're saying and you see if maybe once in a while they do have a point. And then also, I would say, make sure you're still going to the source a fair bit and just listening to Democrats at length in their own words. So like if Pete Buttigieg does a sit down interview once in a while, maybe just listen, right? Just so what you want to make sure you're not doing is exclusively getting your perception of the left and their arguments from right-wing media's portrayal of it, because that portrayal is not always going to be fair or accurate. So definitely do that to diversify your media diet, and just make sure you keep an open mind and keep room for nuance and the fact that in this messy, messy world we live in, good people can disagree on very complicated issues that divide us from places of good faith. So as long as you stick with that, I think you'll be golden. Up next, we're going to hear from somebody whose friends tried to get her to raise her child as gender neutral. Seriously, take a listen to this one.
Hi Brad, so my whole story is, while I was pregnant, a lot of people expected me to give my child a gender neutral name and to raise my child gender neutral, and I flat out refused to do that. I believe in stimulating boys' activities and stimulating girls' activities if they want that. Like, if my child doesn't work within like expectations of their gender, that's fine. I will let them play with whatever they want. If they want to play with their nieces' dolls, they can do that. That's completely fine. But I'm not gonna force my child to become gender neutral or play with toys that are not traditional theirs. If they gravitate towards, that's great. If they don't, that's fine too. Like, for example, my nephew, he loves dinosaurs. He's been diving for dinosaurs since he was 2 years old. And that's just the way boys are. And my niece love dolls. So, like, I'm not going to stimulate anything, or not stimulate, but I lost friendships over this because they were like, you should name your child gender neutral or something like that. So how, I don't really have a question. It's just something I wanted to share. That's like, there's a lot of pressure on mothers to raise their children a certain way according to the left idealisms. And I don't think that's right. Children should be children and be left alone, which is the reason I became more right-leaning, because I didn't want anyone to decide what to do for my child.
Wow. So yeah, your feelings there are totally fair. I wonder, I don't think this person mentioned where they're from, but they might be from abroad. Because listen, like, I know America is not doing amazing, but we're not that cooked yet. Most places in the country, they're still not pressuring people to raise their kids as they bees or non-binary or whatever. Even like the liberal Democrat friends I have in urban, Grand Rapids, they're not doing that. But I mean, it's not unheard of. We've heard of the they be phenomenon and that being promoted in some places. It's absolutely unhinged. It's really bizarre. There's no actual scientific or medical or psychological reason to ever do such a thing. The one context that I don't even need to say because you've already acknowledged it, is that it's wrong to like force kids who don't fit naturally into, boys do this and girls do this, to try to like force or bully them. No, you can't play with the dolls, Billy. That's wrong, and that is psychologically harmful. But you don't have to pretend that kids are just a blank slate and there's really no difference between boys and girls. Who knows? That's just not true. And you should be raising your kids in a way that aligns with reality and biology, because otherwise you're just in denial and you're going to confuse your child. And sorry, not sorry, but like, where do these friends even get off telling you how to raise your kid? Am I the only one who thinks that's extremely audacious? Like, I have some close friends with young kids who, we'll see and we'll visit. And I would never really, like, I might not, when I'm around them, I might not approve of every parenting decision they make, in the sense that would I make the same one with my child? But unless I thought that the child was like being abused or something really terrible was happening, really harmful, I would, even then, it would have to really be something very serious. I would never have the audacity to tell someone how to parent their kid when you don't really know what it's like, or what their kid is like all the time, or behind closed doors, or when there's no guests over. It's like, you don't know the full situation. That's just very presumptuous and rude. So, I mean, you would be well within your rights to tell these friends to pound sand and draw a boundary. And if they can't respect that boundary, get new friends. Because as a parent, it is absolutely your responsibility to put your kid first, not politics first or ideology first or your friends' preferences first. And so tell them to pound sand. And if they can't accept that, then that's on them. But sounds like you are a good parent who actually has your head on straight about this stuff. So I think your kids are going to be just fine without a non-binary name or whatever. All right, everybody, that's it for this episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, this edition of our Voicemail Fridays. Remember, the link to send in your voicemails is in the description. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel or to this podcast feed if you haven't yet. Do hit that like button before you go, comment with your thoughts, yada, yada, yada. And do check out the merch, subscribe to my second channel, blah, blah, blah. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll talk again real soon.